The morning in Chicago was bitterly cold, the autumn chill seeping through every alley, making old newspaper pages on the sidewalk tremble as if trying to fly away. Maya Johnson, a 27-year-old African-American woman, hurried along the cracked stone path, her worn-out sneakers tapping a rushed rhythm. In her left hand, she clutched a crumpled resume, the corners creased from having read it dozens of times. In her right hand, she carried a brown paper bag containing a homemade lunch, white rice grilled chicken, and a few mustard greens, a luxury given her meager income from part-time jobs. Today was important. A job interview at Apex Solutions, a small tech company that promised to change her life. Maya didn't have time to slow down. The watch on her wrist, a hand-me-down gift from her mother, read 7:45 a.m., just 15 minutes left until her appointment. She muttered to herself, "Don't be late, Maya. Don't be late." A gust of wind blew her high-tied curls into her face. She pushed a few strands back, deciding to cut through a narrow alley to save time. Nestled between two old buildings, that alley always gave her chills with its musty smell and trash-strewn corners. But today, she had no choice. The ground was slippery from last night's rain, and soggy newspaper pages stuck to the soles of her shoes. Maya quickened her pace, eyes fixed on the alley's exit. Then, in an instant, everything flipped. Her foot slipped on a crushed plastic bottle, and her body lost balance. She flailed her arms trying to catch the nearby brick wall, but it was useless. The lunch bag flew from her hand. The plastic container burst open, and rice and chicken scattered across the filthy ground. Maya fell hard, her knee hitting a stone, pain shooting up her leg. "Damn it!" she groaned, sitting flat on the cold ground, staring at the ruined meal, like it wasn't just her lunch, but her hope for the day. The resume, luckily, was still in her hand, though now even more crumpled. She exhaled sharply, trying to hold back tears. "This is not my day," she mumbled, rubbing her aching knee. "Are you okay?" A deep, slightly raspy voice called from the corner of the alley. Maya was startled and looked up. From behind a stack of old cardboard boxes, a man stepped out. He looked like a typical homeless person. Messy blonde hair, a scruffy beard covering half his face, a tattered gray coat caked with dust, and shoes so worn his toes were visible. But something was different. His eyes, deep blue, sharp, seemed to observe everything with rare clarity. That gaze didn't belong to someone who had given up on life. Maya shook her head, trying to stand up. "I'm fine. Just a bad day." She looked at the spilled food and sighed. The man stepped closer, carefully avoiding the rice. He bent down, picked up the container holding only a few grains, and handed it to her. He said there was still a little left, the corner of his mouth lifting into a small smile. She took it hesitantly. "Thanks, but I don't think I can eat it anymore." She looked at him, curious. "Do you live here?" He looked around the alley as if evaluating the place. Temporarily, he answered, voice low but firm. "I'm between the man I used to be and the one I'm about to become." Maya frowned. "Who talks like that? Not your average homeless guy." She was about to ask more, but her eyes fell to his foot. A long, reddened wound stretched across his left foot, blood still seeping from the torn skin. "Your foot," she blurted out, forgetting all suspicion. "That wound looks bad." "It's nothing," he replied with a shrug. "I'm used to it." But Maya couldn't ignore it. She opened her bag and pulled out a packet of tissues, a small bottle of rubbing alcohol, and a roll of bandage. She always carried a habit from the days she cared for her sick mother, Grace. "Sit down," she said firmly. "I'm cleaning it." He looked at her, surprised, then sat on a nearby wooden crate. Maya knelt before him, gently wiping the blood around the wound. She warned that this might sting a little, pouring alcohol onto the tissue. He clenched his jaw as the liquid hit his skin. but didn't make a sound. She quickly bandaged the wound, trying to be as gentle as possible. When she finished, she stood up and dusted off her hands. Done. Try to keep it clean, okay? He looked at her, his gaze carrying something more profound than just thanks. Thank you, he finally said. Not many people stop like that. Maya shrugged, hiding the warmth rising in her chest, and just doing what needed to be done. But then her stomach growled loud enough that both heard it. She blushed and held her belly. Perfect. I lost my lunch, missed the interview, and now this. He laughed, a deep, warm sound that caught her off guard. He said, I have a loaf of bread, pulling a slightly squashed loaf from an old fabric bag. Want to share, no butter, though. Maya looked at the bread, then at him. Something about this man made her want to trust him, even if logic told her to be cautious. She joked, only if you've got jam, sitting down next to him on the curb. He laughed heartily, tore the loaf in half, and handed her a piece. They ate in silence, the sound of passing cars faint in the background. At that moment, there was a strange sense of peace in the dirty alley. Maya glanced at her watch and realized she had completely missed the interview. That's it, she sighed, standing up. There's no way I'll make it now. She looked at him, the stranger with the sharp blue eyes. Thanks for the bread. What's your name, Ethan? He answered, rising to his feet with her. And you, Maya. She smiled, though her heart felt heavy. Good luck, Ethan. You too, Maya, he said, his gaze still following her as she walked away. She left the alley, resume still tightly gripped in her hand, but her thoughts were no longer only on the job. With his piercing eyes and cryptic words, the man named Ethan had left a strange impression. Like this meeting wasn't just a coincidence. As she stepped onto the main road, the weak sunlight touched her face, and she told herself she wouldn't forget him, wouldn't forget that fleeting, yet meaningful moment in the cold, narrow alley. In the days following the unexpected encounter in the alley, Maya Johnson couldn't shake the image of Ethan Carter from her mind. His deep blue eyes, sharp yet contemplative, lingered in her thoughts every time she passed through the poor neighborhoods of Chicago. She continued her precarious routine, working part-time at a coffee shop, caring for her mother Grace, who was recovering from surgery, and tirelessly submitting job applications in hopes of escaping poverty. But that damp alley where she had first met Ethan had now become part of her daily route. It was a gray Wednesday afternoon, the air biting cold, signaling the approach of winter. After a tiring shift, Maya decided to walk home instead of taking the bus to save a few dollars. She strolled through the familiar alley, not because it was shorter, but because of a strange pull within her. At the corner, Ethan was still there, sitting on a piece of cardboard, leaning against a blotchy brick wall. He was reading an old paperback book, its yellowed pages looking as if they had passed through dozens of hands. When he saw Maya, he looked up, a faint smile flashing across his bearded face. Fancy seeing you again, Ethan said in his deep, warm voice. You come this way often, huh? Maya shrugged, trying to hide her curiosity. It's convenient. And you? Still here. For now, he replied, closing the book to reveal the title, The Philosophy of Simplicity. It's not such a bad spot. There's wind, sky, and occasionally a kind soul passing by. She chuckled, though she felt a slight unease. With his ragged clothes and dirt-streaked hands, this man spoke like a scholar. She sat down on a wooden crate a few steps away from him, just far enough to feel safe yet still close. What were you reading so intently? She asked. Ethan handed her the book. It's about finding meaning in small things. When you lose everything, you start to see what matters. Maya looked at him, trying to read his emotions through those eyes. There was something profound, yet it felt like it was masking a long story. You talk like someone who's lost everything, she said, half joking, half serious. He only smiled, offering no reply. They chatted for a few more minutes about the weather, the street vendors on the corner, and even dreams. Maya unexpectedly shared that she had once wanted to become a software engineer, but family circumstances had forced her to drop out of college. Ethan listened, nodding, as if he deeply understood the feeling of being left behind by one's dreams. As she stood to leave, he handed her an apple from his old fabric bag. "Consider it payback for the bread last time," he said. She accepted it, warmth stirring inside her. "Thanks, Ethan. Stay warm. It's getting cold." In the following days, Maya began intentionally passing through the alley. She didn't always stop, but whenever she saw Ethan, she felt a strange connection. He often shared short stories, sometimes about faraway travels, sometimes about life lessons, but he always avoided talking about himself. She noticed he never begged for money or complained, even though his shoes were getting worse, and the wound on his foot, though bandaged by her, still hadn't healed. One afternoon, the cold grew harsher. Wind swept through the alley, carrying icy moisture. Just off work with a few coins in her pocket, Maya saw Ethan curled up, clutching his thin coat. The bandage on his foot was now filthy, soaked with blood, and his face looked paler than usual. She stopped, her heart sinking. "Ethan, are you okay?" she asked, kneeling to get a better look. "Just cold," he replied, trying to smile but unable to hide his shivering. "I've had worse days." Maya shook her head, refusing to accept that answer. She checked the wound. It was infected, swollen, and burning hot. "No," she said firmly. "You can't stay out here like this." She thought of her small apartment where she lived with her mother. With her cautious nature, Grace had always warned her not to trust strangers. But looking at Ethan, Maya couldn't walk away. "I have an apartment," she said, voice slightly trembling. "It's nothing fancy, but there's a heater and a couch. You can stay for one night, just one." Ethan looked at her, eyes filled with surprise and hesitation. "Maya, you don't have to do this. I don't want to be a burden." "You're not a burden," she cut in. "But if you stay here another night, that wound could kill you. Come with me." She held out her hand, voice leaving no room for argument. He looked at her hand as if weighing a decision far bigger than just standing up. At last he took it and rose with some difficulty. "Just one night," he repeated as if convincing himself. On the walk home, Maya led the way while Ethan followed, limping, but carrying himself with a strange, quiet pride. Her apartment was on the third floor of an old building, the stairs creaking under each step. The scent of coffee and antiseptic floated out when she unlocked the door. "Welcome to my palace," she said, trying to lighten the tension. "Ignore the pile of dishes in the sink." Ethan stepped in, looking around with curiosity. A photo on the wooden shelf caught his attention. Maya and her mother Grace laughing brightly in a park. "Your mother?" he asked gently, touching the frame. "Grace." Maya nodded. "She's at the hospital this week recovering from surgery. I take care of her when I can." She led Ethan to the old sofa in the living room. "This is your spot tonight. The bathroom is at the end of the hall, and towels are in the cabinet. Don't do anything stupid, okay? Just one night." Ethan nodded, sitting down on the sofa. "Thank you, Maya. You didn't have to do this." "But I wanted to," she replied, her voice soft but resolute. She grabbed a fresh roll of bandages and alcohol from the medicine cabinet and helped him clean the wound again. As she finished dressing it, Ethan looked at her as if wanting to say something, but he remained silent. That night, Maya lay in bed, unable to sleep. The image of Ethan, the man with a deep voice and mysterious eyes, lingered in her thoughts. Who was he? Why was he living in that alley? And why had she, someone usually so cautious, opened her home to a stranger? Inside her, kindness and suspicion wrestled with each other. She told herself just one night, but deep down, she sensed this encounter was going to change everything. The next morning, Faint sunlight filtered through the thin curtains of Maya Johnson's small apartment, casting soft streaks across the old wooden floor. Maya woke up with a strange feeling, as if the night before had been a dream. But the sound of running water from the bathroom quickly pulled her back to reality. Ethan Carter, the mysterious man she had met in the alley and invited into her home, was still here. She sat up, tied her curly hair into a loose bun, and stepped out of her bedroom caught between curiosity and anxiety. In the kitchen, the faint aroma of coffee lingered. Maya was surprised to see Ethan standing by the stove, holding a chipped ceramic mug, carefully pouring hot water into a Vietnamese-style coffee filter. He had shaved away some of the scruffy beard, revealing sharp facial features, and his messy blonde hair had been combed into place. Though still wearing his tattered coat, he looked less disheveled, as if a single night on the sofa had breathed some life back into him. "You're up early," Maya said from the doorway, arms crossed. "And using my kitchen without asking." Ethan turned around, a faint smile on his lips. "I thought coffee was the least I could do to say thanks." "Not too bad." He gestured toward the dripping filter where thick black drops fell slowly into the cup. "I found a bag in the cupboard. I hope you don't mind." Maya frowned but couldn't help smiling. "You're surprisingly comfortable here, but fine. I'll forgive you if the coffee's good." She entered the kitchen, grabbed another mug, and sat at the small wooden table. Ethan poured her a cup, his movements slow and precise, as if he'd done this 100 times before. They sat across from each other, sipping coffee in silence. Maya watched Ethan closely, studying each of his gestures. He held the mug with both hands, his eyes drifting around the apartment, as if committing every detail to memory, from the photo of her and her mother on the shelf to the stack of old books in the corner. Something about him didn't fit the image of a homeless man. The confidence in the way he spoke, the way he handled everything, made her wonder who he was. "You're looking at me like I'm a riddle," Ethan suddenly said, breaking the silence. "Something you want to ask?" Maya set her mug down, tilting her head slightly. "All right then. Who are you, Ethan? I mean, really. No one living in an alley knows how to make coffee like that, or talks like you do." Ethan chuckled softly, though a flicker of tension passed through his eyes. "I am Ethan, as I said. It's just a man trying to find himself again. Life sometimes takes us to strange places, you know." "Nice words," Maya replied, half joking, half serious. "But that doesn't tell me anything. You're not a regular homeless guy, are you?" He looked at her as if weighing how much to reveal. He finally said, "I used to have a different life," his voice dropping. "But now I'm here, and I'm not sure I want to go back." "Have you ever wanted to leave everything behind, Maya?" The question caught her off guard. She thought of the long nights at the cafe, her mother's medical bills, and the dream of becoming a software engineer that had been buried. "Yes," she admitted. "But I didn't have a choice. I have to keep going for my mom and myself." Ethan nodded, as if he understood her more deeply than she realized. "You're stronger than you think," he said sincerely. "Not everyone would stop to help a stranger in an alley." Maya blushed and turned away. She got up, grabbed a plate of cookies from the cupboard, and set them on the table. "Eat before I change my mind and throw you out." The morning passed with small but warm moments. Ethan turned out to be a polite guest. He washed the mugs, folded the blanket on the sofa, and even fixed a desk lamp in the living room that Maya had long forgotten. As she prepared her resume for another job interview, Ethan offered to take a look. "I'm no expert," he said, "but I've seen a few resumes in my time." She handed it over, half skeptical. However, as Ethan read through it, he pointed out areas that needed improvement, such as disorganized structure and vague wording. He sat down with a pen, editing line by line, adding keywords like data analysis and problem-solving terms she hadn't even thought of. "You've got skills," he said. You need to show them. Maya looked at the edited resume, surprised. Where'd you learn this stuff? Don't tell me it was from the alley. Ethan smiled and shrugged. I used to work with paperwork. A long time ago. His vagueness only made Maya more suspicious. But she didn't have time to dig deeper. She had to head out for the interview, and this time, thanks to the improved resume, she felt more confident. Before leaving, she glanced at Ethan sitting on the sofa with one of her old books, Basic Business Management. Don't go snooping through my stuff, okay? She said, half joking. I promise, he replied, raising his hand as if taking an oath. Good luck, Maya. The interview went better than she expected. The manager at Apex Solutions was impressed with her resume, and she was told to expect a call back within a few days. On the way home, Maya couldn't stop thinking about Ethan. He wasn't just polite. He was intelligent, resourceful, and carried a quiet confidence. But it was that very perfection that unsettled her. What was someone like him doing in an alley, and why was he so evasive about his past? Ethan was still there when she opened the apartment door and cleaned the bathroom mirror. She said, You don't have to do all this setting her bag down. You're a guest, not a maid. He replied, I like keeping my hands busy, setting the cloth aside, and I owe you this place. It's warmer than anywhere I've been in a while. His words made Maya pause. There was something sincere in his voice, but also heavy with sorrow. She wanted to ask more, but her phone buzzed. An email from Apex Solutions. She was invited to the second round of interviews. She squealed, unable to contain her joy. I have a shot, she said, turning to Ethan. Thank you. For the resume. Ethan smiled, though his eyes momentarily drifted elsewhere. You deserve it, Maya. As Maya prepared for bed that night, she heard the sound of pages turning in the living room. She stepped out and saw Ethan reading the business management book, pencil in hand, jotting notes in the margins. You're reading that like you've got a test coming up, she said from the doorway. Ethan looked up, startled, then closed the book. Just curious, he said. You should get some rest. Tomorrow will be a busy day. Maya nodded, but as she returned to her room, she couldn't shake the feeling that Ethan was hiding something. He wasn't just a homeless man, he was a mystery, and she was slowly being pulled into it. Lying in bed, she told herself she'd learn more about him. But deep down, she felt a connection, like Ethan wasn't just a stranger, but a part of her fate she had yet to understand. Maya Johnson's apartment was bathed in the dim glow of a Chicago afternoon, as gray clouds veiled the sun. Maya sat on the sofa holding a cold cup of coffee, her eyes fixed on Ethan Carter, who stood near the window gazing down at the wet street below. 2 days had passed since she brought him into her home, and although Ethan had proven to be a thoughtful guest, fixing lights, cleaning, even helping her polish her resume, Maya's suspicion had only grown. He was too bright, too composed, unlike any ordinary homeless man. His vague answers only fueled her curiosity, and today she decided she needed the truth. It had all started that afternoon, when Maya stopped at a newsstand near the cafe where she worked. An old newspaper wedged beneath a stack of magazines caught her eye. The front page bore a bold headline: Pinnacle Technologies CEO, Ethan Carter missing after plane crash. Beneath it was a photo of a sharp-eyed blonde man in a tailored suit. Though the man in the picture was far more polished, Maya had no doubt it was Ethan, now living in her apartment, wearing a torn coat and broken shoes. Her heart pounded as she skimmed the article. Ethan Carter, 32, had disappeared 8 months earlier after a private jet crash. Pinnacle Technologies, the tech company he had founded, had spiraled into chaos, and an interim CEO had taken over. Standing in her apartment, Maya felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. She took a deep breath, set her coffee down, and spoke, her voice shaking but firm. Ethan, you need to tell me the truth. Right now. Ethan turned to face her, a flicker of tension in his eyes. The truth about what Maya, he asked calmly, but with underlying strain. She pulled the newspaper from her bag and held it up. About this. Ethan Carter, CEO of Pinnacle Technologies. This is you. She pointed at the photo, eyes locked on his. Don't lie. I'm not stupid. Ethan looked at the paper, then at her. For a moment, she thought he might deny it, but he only sighed and sat down on the chair across from her. All right, he said, voice low. It's me. I'm Ethan Carter, or at least I used to be. The confession hit Maya hard, even though she had braced herself for it. She crossed her arms, trying to stay calm. Used to be, you were a CEO, a millionaire, and now you live in an alley pretending to be homeless. Why? What happened? Ethan lowered his head, hands clasped tightly. 8 months ago, I nearly died in a plane crash. It wasn't an accident. I discovered someone had tampered with the aircraft. When I survived, I knew I couldn't return right away. Pinnacle, the company I built, was manipulated by Victor Hayes, the interim CEO. He was exploiting my absence to sign shady deals and move assets overseas. If I reappeared without solid evidence, he'd destroy me, not just my reputation, but my life. Maya listened, her heartbeat pounding. She wanted to believe him, but the story was too big, too complex to accept. So you ran, left everything behind to live like this. She gestured at his torn coat. You could have hired a lawyer, or you could have gone to the police. Why hide in an alley? Ethan looked up, pain etched in his face. Because I didn't know who to trust. Victor has people everywhere inside the company and in the media. I needed time to gather proof and understand what was happening. Living in the alley was the only way to vanish, to ensure no one could find me. She shook her head, torn between sympathy and anger. And what about me? You let me help you, brought you into my home and told me nothing. You made me feel like a fool. Ethan said I didn't want to deceive you, his voice pleading. I planned to leave after one night. But you made me want to stay. Your kindness, your strength, despite your struggles. It reminded me of the man I used to want to be. I didn't tell you the truth because I was afraid I'd hurt you or drag you into danger. Maya stood up, pacing the small living room. She thought of the past few days, how Ethan helped with her resume, fixed her lights, and made her coffee. All of it had felt genuine. But now she couldn't help but wonder if it had all been part of a performance. I trusted you, she said, voice tight. I thought you were just someone who needed help. But now I don't even know who I'm looking at. Ethan stood as well, stepping closer, but stopping when she took a step back. You're looking at me, Maya. Not the CEO, not the man in the alley. Just Ethan. I am grateful for the place you gave me to breathe, even for a few days. His words shook her, but she still couldn't dispel the sting of betrayal. So what now? She asked. Are you going to keep hiding, or go back and fight this Victor guy? Ethan glanced out the window, his eyes distant. I have to find evidence. Victor is destroying Pinnacle, and if I don't stop him, hundreds of employees will lose their jobs. Everything I built will be gone. But I don't want to pull you into this. Maya gave a dry laugh, though her heart felt heavy. You already did from the moment I took you in. She paused and inhaled deeply. If you're going to stay, you have to be honest. No more secrets. Agreed. Ethan looked at her as if searching for something in her eyes. Agreed, he said at last. But you must promise me something. If things get dangerous, you'll stay out. She nodded, though she knew deep down she couldn't walk away so easily. Something about Ethan. The sincerity in his voice, the pain behind his gaze, made her want to stay to understand him. But simultaneously, she sensed a storm was coming and wasn't sure she was ready. That night, as Ethan slept on the sofa, Maya sat in her bedroom, the newspaper still on the desk. She reread the article line by line about Ethan Carter, once a rising star in the tech world, now a ghost hiding in the shadows. She wondered if she could trust him, or if her kindness had placed her in a dangerous game. But when she peeked through the door and saw Ethan sleeping with the business management book on his chest, she felt a deep connection, as if fate had brought them together for a reason far greater than she could yet understand. Maya Johnson's small apartment glowed under the amber light of an old desk lamp, while the darkness outside the Chicago window grew deeper by the hour. Maya sat on the sofa, gripping her phone tightly, her eyes scanning the confirmation email from Apex Solutions. She had passed the second interview. She was officially offered a position as a technical support associate. It should have been a moment of celebration, but her mind was clouded by Ethan Carter, who stood silently in the corner of the room, folding the blanket from the sofa. Since Ethan confessed that he was the missing CEO of Pinnacle Technologies and revealed Victor Hayes' conspiracy, Maya felt torn between trust and doubt. She was angry at him for hiding the truth, yet she couldn't deny the sincerity in his eyes. "How long do you plan on staying here?" Maya asked abruptly, breaking the silence. Her tone was sharper than intended, as if she were masking the hurt underneath. Ethan paused, looking at her. "I'll leave whenever you ask me to," he said, voice low. "But I need a few more days to contact someone who can help. After that, I promise I won't be a burden." Maya crossed her arms, frowning. "Help with what? You said Victor is destroying your company, but what's your plan? Or are you just going to keep hiding in that alley forever?" Ethan sat down in the chair across from her, his expression serious. "I'm not hiding anymore. I need evidence, documents, emails, anything that proves Victor is moving Pinnacle's assets offshore. I've reached out to Sarah, a former employee and close friend. She knows the internal systems at Pinnacle, and she agreed to help." Hearing the name Sarah stirred a mix of curiosity and unexplainable jealousy in Maya. "Who's Sarah? And why would she risk herself for you?" Ethan smiled faintly, as if he'd noticed her tone change. "Sarah used to be the head of cybersecurity at Pinnacle. She left before I disappeared. She couldn't stand how Victor was running things. She's the only person I trust right now. Aside from—" He hesitated, looking at her. "Aside from you." His words caught Maya off guard. She turned away, pretending to check her phone. "Don't say stuff like that. I'm not your ally. I just don't like seeing people get hurt." Ethan nodded, not arguing. "I understand. But if you want to help, your new job at Apex could be the key. Apex has a contract with a shell company Victor's been using to funnel money. We might find what we need if you can access their system even just a little." Maya froze. "Do you want me to break into the company system? Do you realize how illegal that is? I just got a chance at this job and you're asking me to risk everything." "It's not breaking in," Ethan quickly explained. "Just observe. Look for any strange emails or documents. I won't let you take any real risk. If you're not comfortable, I'll find another way." But Maya knew he didn't have many other options. She thought of her mother Grace, who always taught her that kindness must be paired with caution. And then she thought of Ethan, the man who made her feel something different, even if she didn't want to admit it. "I'll think about it," she said at last. "But if I do this, you tell me everything, no more secrets." "Deal," Ethan replied, his eyes lighting up with a hint of hope. The next day, Maya began her job at Apex Solutions. The sleek office with its glass walls and glowing computer monitors felt like a different universe from the worn-down cafe she once worked at. She was tasked with reviewing the company's internal network, a role requiring the technical skills she had self-taught during countless late nights. But Ethan's request lingered in her mind. Every time she opened the data system, part of her wanted to search for suspicious traces, while another feared the consequences. Meanwhile, Ethan met Sarah at a small diner on the outskirts of Chicago. Sarah, a white woman in her early 30s with short dyed red hair, looked wary. "You're insane, Ethan," she said in a low voice. "Victor knows you're alive. He's had people watching Pinnacle's old transaction records. If you show your face now, he won't hesitate." "I don't have a choice," Ethan replied. "He's tearing apart everything I built." "Can you still access the old Pinnacle servers?" Sarah nodded and pulled out a small USB stick. "I grabbed some emails from the backup servers. There are a few shady transactions linked to a company called Apex Solutions. But you'll need more than this to bring Victor down." She eyed him warily. "And the girl you mentioned, Maya, can you trust her?" Ethan smiled, thinking of Maya. "She's stronger than I am, but I don't want to drag her into this any deeper." Back at Apex, Maya began to notice strange details. She discovered a hidden folder in the system containing emails between an Apex employee and Horizon Ventures, the same shell company Ethan had mentioned. Her heart raced as she opened one email detailing a large wire transfer signed electronically by Victor Hayes. She copied the email onto a USB drive, her hands trembling. She knew she was crossing a line, but her curiosity and a fragment of trust in Ethan had overcome her fear. That night, when Maya returned to the apartment, she found Ethan reviewing a stack of old papers at the kitchen table. "I found this," she said, handing him the USB. "But if I get caught, I won't forgive you." Ethan looked at her, his eyes full of gratitude and concern. "You didn't have to do this, Maya. I could have figured something out." "But you didn't," she replied firmly. "And I do not turn away when I know the truth." Ethan plugged the USB into his old laptop, scanning the emails. "This is huge," he said, his voice rising with excitement. "If we can gather just a few more documents like this, we can expose Victor." But as he looked at Maya, he saw the tension on her face. "Are you all right?" he asked. Maya sat down, exhaling. "I don't know. I want to help you, but I'm scared. I'm not used to this sneaking around danger. I just wanted an everyday life, Ethan." He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "I know. And I promise after this is over, I'll do everything I can to ensure you never have to worry again." His promise moved her, but inside her still churned a storm. She risked everything, her job, safety, and future, for a man she had only recently met. And yet, when she looked into his eyes, she saw not just resolve, but a deep, aching pain. She wondered whether she could truly trust him, or whether her compassion had led her into a path with no way back. Night fell over Maya Johnson's small Chicago apartment, bringing a bitter cold, and the sharp wind whistled through old window panes. Maya sat curled up on the sofa, clinging to a thin blanket, her eyes locked on her phone screen. A text message had just arrived. No number, no name, just a short sentence. "Ask your friend what he's hiding." Attached was a photo taken from a distance. Maya standing in front of Apex Solutions, her familiar blue coat unmistakable in the daylight. Her heart pounded, an icy grip tightening around her chest. She glanced at Ethan Carter, seated at the kitchen table, sifting through documents from the USB she had handed him the night before. The glow of the old laptop cast shadows across his focused face, highlighting the depth in his piercing blue eyes. "Ethan," Maya called, her voice trembling. He looked up immediately, sensing the tension in her expression. She handed him the phone, her fingers shaking. "Someone's watching me," You know something about this, don't you? Ethan took the phone, read the message and studied the photo. His face hardened, and a flicker of worry crossed his eyes before he regained composure. I don't know who sent it, he said calmly, voice low, but I have a guess. Victor. He's trying to scare you, to divide us. Maya stood up and began pacing the narrow living room. Divide us, Ethan. I don't even know what us means anymore. I've risked my job and safety because you told me Victor is the bad guy, and now I'm being followed and you're still hiding things from me. Don't deny it. I see how you dodge whenever I ask about your past. Ethan sighed and stood as well, but kept his distance. Maya. I've told you about Pinnacle and the plane crash. I never wanted to hide more, but there are things. They're complicated. Complicated how she snapped. I just got a threatening message, Ethan. If you want me to keep helping, I need everything. Right now. He looked at her as if battling something within. Finally, he sat on the sofa and motioned for her to join him. Maya hesitated, but sat down, keeping some space between them. All right, Ethan began, his voice low and steady. There's something I haven't told you. When I started Pinnacle, I was naive and surrounded by threats in the tech industry. To protect my family, my mother and younger sister from those threats, I created a false identity. Daniel Brooks. I used that name to sign specific private contracts and open overseas accounts. It was all legal, but not transparent. When Pinnacle grew, I left that name behind. But Victor knows. He's using it against me to make me look like a fraud if I ever resurface. Maya's pulse quickened. So, you've been living under a fake identity, and now Victor is using it to destroy you? She shook her head, the sense of betrayal rising again. Why didn't you tell me from the start? You let me take all these risks without knowing the whole truth. I was afraid, Ethan admitted, regret etched into his voice. Scared, I am so terrified you won't believe me. Afraid you'd walk away. Maya, you're the only person who's made me feel like I still have a chance to do the right thing. But I swear, I'll protect you. I won't let Victor touch you. His words made Maya waver, but forgiveness didn't come easily. Protect me, Ethan. I don't need a hero. I need you to be honest. She stood, wrapping her arms around herself. I need time to think. Ethan nodded, not arguing. I understand. If you want me to leave, say the word. She didn't respond. Instead, she walked into her bedroom and closed the door. That night, Maya lay in bed, sleep evading her. The threatening message, the photo, and the revelation about Daniel Brooks swirled in her mind. She thought of her mother, Grace, who had always taught her that trust must be built on truth. But she also thought of Ethan, the man with wounded eyes, who had helped revise her resume and made her feel seen. She wondered whether she could continue trusting him, or if it was time to walk away before things got worse. Meanwhile, Ethan remained awake. He sat at the kitchen table, contacting Sarah through an encrypted app. Victor knows I'm investigating, he typed. He's targeting Maya. Can you trace the source of this message? Sarah responded quickly. I'll try. But Ethan, you're playing a dangerous game. Does Maya know what she's up against? She's strong, Ethan replied. But I don't want her hurt. Find me more evidence, Sarah. We have to stop Victor before he strikes. The next morning, Maya arrived at Apex Solutions with a heavy heart. She worked as usual, monitoring the internal network, but her eyes kept drifting toward the hidden directories. During lunch break, with the office nearly empty, she reopened the hidden folder she had found earlier. A new email caught her eye. It detailed a secret meeting between Victor and a Horizon Ventures representative, scheduled at a luxury hotel in downtown Chicago. Her heart pounded as she copied the message onto a USB drive. She knew she was going too far. but part of her wanted to prove she wasn't just a pawn in someone else's game. When she returned to the apartment, Ethan was at the kitchen table, poring over notes on his laptop. She handed him the USB, her voice cold. "I found this. A meeting with Victor next week. But Ethan, if you hide anything else from me, I won't forgive you." Ethan looked at her, his eyes filled with gratitude and concern. "Thank you, Maya. I promise no more secrets." He plugged the USB into his laptop, scanning the email. "This is our chance. If we can record that meeting, we'll have irrefutable proof." Maya nodded, but inside a storm raged. She was risking everything: her job, her safety, even her sense of self for Ethan. But she felt a deep connection when she looked into his eyes and saw the fierce determination mixed with pain. She wondered if she could overcome her fear and stand by him, or if Victor's shadow would destroy everything before they could fight back. The night before Pinnacle Technologies conference, Maya Johnson's apartment was enveloped in a heavy silence, broken only by the steady ticking of the wall clock. Maya sat at the dining table, clutching a cooling cup of chamomile tea, her eyes fixed on the tiny USB camera Ethan Carter had placed before her. The device, disguised as a shirt button, was their key to recording Victor Hayes' secret meeting, where he planned to sign away Pinnacle to an offshore shell company. Ethan stood by the window, the streetlight outside casting long shadows across his face, highlighting a blend of tension and resolve. "We only have one shot," Ethan said, voice low. "As a tech assistant, you'll enter the conference and plant the camera in the boardroom. I'll show up as Daniel Brooks long enough to throw Victor off. Sarah will handle the live broadcast from her end. If everything goes right, Victor won't have time to react." Maya nodded, but her heart was pounding. "And if it doesn't go right? What if he recognizes me, or the camera gets spotted? Ethan, we're going up against someone dangerous." Ethan walked over and sat across from her. "I won't let you be in danger. If there's even the slightest sign of trouble, you walk away. I promise." She looked into his eyes, wanting to believe him, but the memory of that threatening message still haunted her. "You say that, but I feel like a pawn in your plan. I need to know, Ethan. Do I matter to you? Or am I just a tool to take down Victor?" The question froze him. He reached for her hand, voice rough with emotion. "Maya, you're the reason I haven't given up. I could lose Pinnacle, but I can't lose you. I know I've made you doubt me, but I swear once this is over, I'll do everything I can to make things right." His words shook her, but she gently pulled her hand away. "Let's finish this first," she said, her voice colder than she meant. "We'll talk afterward." The day of the conference arrived. The Grand Meridian Hotel in downtown Chicago radiated luxury. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead as executives in tailored suits mingled with glasses of champagne. Maya, dressed in a white shirt and black slacks, the uniform of a support technician, moved through the crowd, pushing a cart of cables and projectors. The button camera was subtly attached to her chest, recording everything. She forced herself to stay calm, though her heart pounded each time someone stared too long. Horizon Ventures executives were seated around a long table inside the main boardroom. Maya entered, pretending to adjust the projector, and carefully placed the camera strategically to capture a full view of the meeting. She glanced at her watch. Ethan would arrive in 20 minutes. As she turned to leave, a security guard stopped her. "Who are you?" he asked, eyes narrowing. "Tech support," Maya replied, flashing her ID. "I just finished setting up the projector." He nodded, but still looked unconvinced. She stepped quickly into the hallway, her pulse racing. She sent a message to Ethan. "The camera's in. Be careful." Ethan was adjusting his gray suit in the hotel, and a badge on his chest read, "Daniel Brooks." He had shaved, slicked back his blonde hair, and looked every bit the polished investor. From a cafe nearby, Sarah monitored the camera feed from her laptop. "Ready," she messaged. "Ready," he replied, taking a deep breath. He entered the lobby, blending in among the guests and constantly scanning the crowd. Victor wasn't there yet, but Ethan knew he would be on time. In the boardroom, Victor Hayes entered with practiced charisma, tall and commanding in a black suit. His voice echoed through the room. "Gentlemen, today marks a turning point for Pinnacle. This partnership with Horizon Ventures will take us to a new level." The executives nodded, unaware they were being recorded. Watching the live feed from her phone in the hallway, Maya felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She was no longer helping Ethan, placing her entire future on the line. She thought of her mother Grace and wondered if she would be proud or terrified if she knew what Maya was doing. Then the boardroom door opened. Ethan entered. His Daniel Brooks badge glinted under the lights. The atmosphere in the room changed instantly. Victor froze, and the smile wiped from his face. "Daniel," he gasped. "No, it can't be." Ethan gave a cold smile. "Not Daniel Victor. Ethan Carter, the man you thought was dead." He turned to the stunned executives, his voice sharp and clear. "Gentlemen, this contract is a scam. Victor is selling Pinnacle for personal gain, and I have proof." At that moment, Sarah activated the broadcast. The projector screen lit up, displaying emails and audio recordings from Maya's USB drive. Victor's voice echoed through the speakers, discussing offshore transfers through Horizon Ventures, using Ethan's forged signature. Shock rippled through the room. Some executives stood pale-faced. Victor tried to recover. "This is a setup," he shouted. "He's a fraud. Ethan Carter is dead." But no one believed him. Police officers alerted by Sarah earlier entered the room. "Victor Hayes," one said firmly. "You're under arrest for fraud and embezzlement." Victor was handcuffed, his eyes burning with hatred as he stared at Ethan. Outside the boardroom, Maya stood trembling. She watched Ethan emerge, scanning the hallway for her. "You did it," he said, his voice full of gratitude. "We won." But Maya didn't smile. "Won," she said hollow. "Ethan, I was just part of your plan. You never asked me what I wanted. You just pulled me into this." Ethan's face fell. He opened his mouth, but she cut him off. "I need time," she said, voice cracking. She turned and walked away, leaving Ethan standing beneath the glittering chandeliers like a lone hero with no one to celebrate with. That night, Maya sat alone in her apartment, staring at a photo of her mother. Tears streamed silently down her face. She had helped Ethan win justice, but at what cost? Her trust in him was fractured, and she wondered if she could forgive him, or if this was the end of whatever strange bond they had shared. Chicago lay beneath a pale morning light, the first rays of dawn slipping through heavy fog. Maya Johnson stood before the mirror in her small apartment, tying her curls into a neat bun and preparing for another workday at Apex Solutions. But the eyes staring back at her no longer held the same fire. The confrontation with Victor Hayes at the Pinnacle Technologies conference had brought justice, but it also left a fracture deep within her. Ethan Carter, the man she had once trusted and risked everything for, now felt like a stranger. She had left the Grand Meridian Hotel that night with a simple declaration: "I need time," and Ethan hadn't reappeared since then. The apartment was tranquil now. No more rustling pages from Ethan's late-night reading. No more scent of coffee brewed just the way he liked it. Maya focused on work, but her chest tightened every time she walked past the alley where they first met. She wondered if she had been right to push him away, or if the wound to her trust had cost her something rare. At Apex, she was praised for her performance, but kept her distance from coworkers. She feared that one misstep might draw suspicion to her role in Victor's downfall. One afternoon, As she sat alone in the break room, her phone buzzed a message from Sarah, Ethan's longtime friend. "Are you okay, Maya? Ethan asks about you, but he doesn't want to intrude." Maya stared at the screen, her thumb hovering above the keyboard. But she didn't reply. She didn't know what to say. She was angry that Ethan had pulled her into a dangerous plan without asking. But beneath that, she missed the simple moments they shared, the way he laughed when the coffee machine malfunctioned, the quiet intensity with which he helped revise her resume. She wondered whether forgiveness was possible, or if the fear of betrayal would always hold her back. Elsewhere in Chicago, Ethan sat in a small temporary office arranged by Sarah. He had resumed his role as CEO of Pinnacle Technologies, only temporarily, to stabilize the company after Victor's scandal. The media called him the CEO, who returned from the dead, and reporters flooded his inbox. But Ethan felt nothing. He often reread Maya's email, a short thank you note for helping her land the job at Apex. Nothing more. He knew she needed space, but each day without her reminded him that he had lost something far more valuable than any title or company. One evening, Ethan met Sarah at their old cafe. "She's not replying to me," Sarah said, setting her latte down. "Maya's strong, but she's hurt, Ethan. You pulled her into a world she never asked for." "I know," Ethan replied quietly. "I don't deserve her forgiveness, but I want to make it right. I've been thinking of stepping down from Pinnacle, leaving the city, starting over somewhere. Simpler." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure Pinnacle was your dream?" Ethan gave a weary smile. "No, Sarah. That dream changed. Now it's someone else." Maya, meanwhile, had begun searching for new meaning. She saved money from her job at Apex and eventually opened a small bookstore in the suburbs of Chicago. She named it Soul Pages. It was more than a bookstore. It became a space for community, where children and adults came for storytelling, action, and handling. For the first time, Maya felt alive, not just surviving. Yet every time she shelved a book on business or leadership, her thoughts strayed to Ethan. One afternoon, while organizing new arrivals, a package arrived with no return address. Inside was a handwritten letter and a USB drive. She opened the letter and instantly recognized Ethan's handwriting. "Maya, I don't know if you'll read this, but I owe you the truth. This USB contains the final evidence of Victor's conspiracy. I've already submitted everything to the authorities he won't be able to return. I'm sorry I dragged you into danger. Sorry I acted without asking what you wanted. You deserve peace, and I hope Soul Pages gives you that. I won't reach out again, but I know this. You changed me. Forever. Ethan." Maya held the letter, her eyes filling with quiet tears. She plugged the USB into her laptop. It contained classified documents and Victor's final voice recording admitting fraud and deception. She realized then Ethan hadn't just fought for Pinnacle. He had fought for justice, and in his flawed way, for her. But was his honesty too late? Or was she not ready to receive it before? She called her mother, Grace, who had recently returned home from the hospital. "Mom, if someone hurt you in the past, but they're trying to make it right, what would you do?" she asked, her voice breaking. Grace paused, her voice gentle through the phone. "Sweetheart, forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about allowing yourself to live again. If they've truly changed, you'll feel it in your heart." That night, Maya sat by her window, watching the rain streak down the glass. Her thoughts drifted to Ethan, the man who had stepped into her life from a cold alley, bringing light and shadows with him. She wasn't ready to see him again. Not yet. But his letter had planted a seed of hope. She whispered a quiet promise to herself to find her healing first, so that one day when the time was right, she could face him without fear. Somewhere across the city, Ethan stood on the balcony of his temporary apartment, gazing at the glittering skyline. He held a photo on his phone. Maya smiling inside her bookstore, soul pages sent secretly by Sarah. He knew he had to wait, to let her heal. But deep in his chest, he also knew that his heart belonged to her, no matter where life took him. Their story wasn't over. But for now, they both had to heal before they could find their way back to each other. Winter had settled over Chicago, cloaking the city in a thin veil of snow that turned familiar streets into a canvas of whites and grays. Maya Johnson stood behind the counter of Soul Pages, the little bookstore she'd opened on the city's outskirts. The warm interior, scented with old paper and coffee, had become her haven after the chaotic days of Ethan Carter and the takedown of Victor Hayes. Wooden shelves brimmed with novels, poetry, and children's books, while a cozy reading corner with worn armchairs drew kids and adults alike from the neighborhood. Today, a circle of children sat cross-legged listening intently as Maya read The Little Prince, her voice calm and captivating. She smiled, but her gaze occasionally drifted, searching perhaps for a shadow that belonged to the past. Maya had changed since leaving the Grand Meridian Hotel after the victory against Victor. Her job at Apex Solutions provided stability, but her heart belonged to Soul Pages. The bookstore wasn't just a business, but a place of healing. She hosted free story sessions and organized book donations for underprivileged kids. She felt closer to her true self. And yet, whenever she came across a business management book on the shelf, her thoughts strayed to Ethan, the man who had stepped into her life from a cold alleyway, bringing light and shadows. One afternoon, her mother Grace dropped by the store, fully recovered from surgery, her silver hair neatly tied back. Her eyes sparkled with quiet pride as she watched Maya. "You've done well, Maya," she said, sipping hot tea in the armchair. "But I can see it in your eyes, you're still sad. It's about that boy." Maya sighed, pausing mid-shelving. "It's not Ethan, Mom. It's me. I needed to find myself again." He lied. "He pulled me into danger. And even if he made things right, I'm scared to trust again." Grace reached for her daughter's hand, voice soft. "I once lost faith in your father. He left when you were small, and I thought I'd never forgive him. But I learned forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about freeing yourself. If you love him, don't let fear stop you from living." Her mother's words lingered. Maya thought of Ethan's letter, the heartfelt apology, and the USB containing the final evidence of Victor's crimes. She hadn't replied, but kept the letter in her drawer, rereading it whenever doubt crept in. She wondered if she could ever truly open her heart again, or if betrayal had carved a wall too high to cross. Elsewhere, Ethan Carter lived in a quiet town a few hours from Chicago. He had stepped down as CEO of Pinnacle Technologies, handing the company over to a new board committed to transparency. He used his savings to open a small cafe, Haven Coffee, on a tree-lined street. With rustic wooden tables and warm bread in the air, the cafe became Ethan's place of peace. He worked behind the counter, brewing coffee, chatting with customers, and supporting local programs like job training classes for unemployed youth. Ethan had changed too. No longer the man hiding in alleyways, nor the polished CEO in a designer suit he lived now. Yet his heart remained tethered to Maya. He kept a photo of her, one Sarah had taken secretly, showing Maya smiling radiantly inside Soul Pages, tucked in his wallet. It reminded him of the woman who had inspired him to become better. Sarah kept him updated, but Ethan never reached out. "She needs time," he told Sarah during a phone call, "and I need to prove I'm worthy before I ever go back." One afternoon, while wiping down the counter, a regular Mr. Henry, a retired farmer, studied Ethan. He said, "You've got the look of a man waiting on someone. Who's the girl?" Ethan chuckled softly but didn't answer. Mr. Henry continued, "Don't let time slip through your fingers, son. If she matters, tell her. His words stayed with Ethan. That night, he sat in the back room of the cafe and began writing another letter to Maya, but didn't send it. He wrote about Haven coffee, about learning to slow down, and how he still remembered how she liked her coffee with just a hint of sugar. He folded the letter and placed it in a wooden box, whispering to himself, "One day, when we're both ready." Back in Chicago, Maya realized that Soul Pages didn't just heal her, it nurtured her community too. One evening, during a poetry reading event, Who also nurtured her community. Old handed Maya a drawing. In it, Maya stood surrounded by books, smiling. "Miss Maya, thank you for making this place special," the girl said sweetly. The moment touched her deeply. Maya had found a part of herself again, but there was still a space inside her one Ethan used to fill. Later, she visited her mother, bringing the drawing along. Sitting on the warm sofa of Grace's home, she asked quietly, "Mom, what should I do about Ethan?" Grace smiled gently. "You were brave enough to open a bookstore, brave enough to give to others. Now be brave enough to open your heart, not for him, but because you deserve to be loved." Back at Soul Pages that night, Maya opened the drawer and reread Ethan's letter. Then she picked up a pen and wrote a few lines in response, but didn't send them. "Ethan, I'm not ready yet, but I'm no longer angry. One day we'll meet again." She folded the letter and placed it in the drawer. Her heart felt lighter. Her journey wasn't over. And wherever he was, Ethan was still a part of it. At Haven Coffee, Ethan stood behind the counter gazing at the snow-covered street. He didn't know about Maya's letter, but deep in his soul, something told him she was still with him. And so he kept living, trying to be worthy of the kindness she once showed him, hoping their paths would cross again one day when the time was right. Spring cast a gentle light over Chicago, melting the last patches of snow on the streets. Maya Johnson stood inside the Soul Pages bookstore, arranging a stack of new books. Her eyes skimmed the colorful covers, but her mind was elsewhere. It had been 3 months since she received Ethan Carter's letter, the man who had entered her life from a cold alleyway and changed everything. The bookstore had since become the heart of the suburban community where children and adults gathered to read, share, and find joy. Maya had found peace, but her heart still carried a void that only Ethan had once filled. One afternoon, as Maya was cleaning up after a children's reading session, a parcel arrived with no sender's name. Inside was a legal document and a handwritten note. "Do you still trust Ethan Carter? Ask him about Daniel Brooks." The document was a copy of a share transfer contract from Pinnacle Technologies, signed under Daniel Brooks, the alias Ethan had once revealed. Maya felt her blood rush to her head. She thought Ethan's past had been settled, but now a ghost from it had resurfaced, threatening the peace she had worked so hard to build. She called Sarah, Ethan's friend, to verify. "Sarah, what is this contract about?" Maya asked, her voice tense. "I thought everything with Victor was over." Sarah sighed on the phone. "Victor is in prison, but some associates are still trying to dig up Ethan's past. That document might be fake, or it could be something Victor left behind to smear him. Maya, Ethan isn't with Pinnacle anymore. He's living in a small town running a cafe. But if you got this, someone might try to drive you two apart." Maya gripped the phone tightly, her heart in turmoil. She remembered her mother Grace's words about forgiveness and moving forward, but the document stirred old doubts. She couldn't wait any longer. She packed a coat, bought a bus ticket, and decided to travel to the town where Ethan now lived, not to confront him, but to find the truth. Meanwhile, at Haven Coffee in Willow Creek, Ethan stood behind the counter making coffee for a group of regulars. The small cafe with its wooden walls and the scent of toasted bread had become a place where he found new meaning. He was no longer the glamorous CEO, just Ethan, a barista, helping his community. But his eyes often drifted thinking of Maya. He kept the letter he wrote to her in a wooden box, but hadn't found the courage to send it. One morning, as Ethan was wiping down a table, Mr. Henry, a regular, remarked, "You're still waiting for that girl, aren't you? Don't wait too long, Ethan." The words made Ethan pause. He decided to rewrite the letter to Maya, but a bus pulled up outside the cafe before he could. Maya stepped off her curly hair, tied high, her eyes resolute but full of emotion. Ethan froze when he saw her. "Maya," he said, stepping out from behind the counter. "What are you doing here?" Maya held up the document, her voice firm. "What is this, Ethan? You told me everything, but someone sent me this about Daniel Brooks. What else are you hiding?" Ethan looked at the document, his face turning pale. He led her to a quiet corner of the cafe, away from customers. "Maya, I swear I've told you everything about Daniel Brooks. It was a fake identity I used when I was younger to protect my family. After I left Pinnacle, I closed all accounts linked to that name. This document might be fake or something Victor left behind to tarnish me." She looked into his eyes, searching for truth. "Why do I keep getting hit with surprises like this? I want to trust you, Ethan, but every time I try, something comes up that makes me doubt." Ethan took her hand, his voice pleading. "I know I don't deserve your trust, but Maya, I gave everything up. Pinnacle, the reputation to live honestly. I'm building this cafe to become the man you once saw in that alley. Imperfect but sincere." Maya pulled her hand away, but her eyes softened. "I can't fully trust you, but I'm here, Ethan. I came all this way to face you because I don't want to live with this doubt forever." Ethan nodded, hoping to light up his eyes. "Stay a few days, Maya. Let me prove to you that there are no more secrets. This cafe, this town, this is the real me, and I want you to see it." Maya looked around Haven Coffee, noticing the children's drawings on the walls and the regulars smiling and greeting Ethan. She could feel the authenticity here, a world far from the glamour of Pinnacle. "All right," she said, "a few days. But if I find even one more secret, Ethan, I'm leaving for good." He smiled, relieved. "Deal. Want to try some coffee? I've gotten better at it." Maya laughed for the first time that day. She sat at a small table overseeing Ethan prepare the coffee. At that moment, she felt a flicker of hope that maybe after everything they could still find their way back to each other. But inside, she still held on to a bit of caution, reminding herself that this was the final test for her trust. Spring in Willow Creek was as gentle as a piece of music, with breezes carrying the scent of oak blossoms and fresh grass. Maya Johnson had been staying at Haven Coffee for 3 days, and each day felt like a puzzle piece helping her understand more about Ethan Carter, the man who was once a glamorous CEO, now just a coffee maker with a sincere smile. The small cafe with its wooden walls and warm yellow lights had become where Maya could feel the truth in Ethan's character. But her heart still wavered between newfound trust and the fear of being hurt again. That morning, Maya helped Ethan behind the counter, awkwardly learning how to make a latte. "You're doing well," Ethan said, standing beside her, eyes twinkling. "But don't use too much milk, or customers will think we've opened a bubble tea shop." Maya laughed gently, nudging his shoulder. "Don't judge, I just started learning." That light, intimate moment made her forget about the Daniel Brooks document that had once stirred her doubts. Ethan had spent the last 3 days proving his sincerity, taking her on walks through the town, telling her about the community projects he supported, and even letting her read the letters he'd written, but never sent lines full of longing and hope for her. She began to believe that he had changed not just for her, but for himself. Still, Maya held on to a bit of caution. She called her mother Grace to share her thoughts. "Mom, I'm here with Ethan," she said over the phone, standing in the backyard of the cafe. He's different from before, but I'm still scared. What if I trust him again and end up disappointed? Grace's gentle voice came through the line. Sweetheart, love always carries risks. But if you feel he's genuine, give both of you a chance. You know what's best for yourself. Her mother's words left Maya thoughtful. She returned to the cafe and saw Ethan chatting with Mr. Henry, a regular at Haven Coffee. Mr. Henry winked at her. This young lady lights up the cafe, Ethan. Don't let her slip away again, you hear? Ethan blushed, smiling awkwardly. I'm trying, Mr. Henry. He glanced at Maya, his eyes filled with meaning. In the afternoon, Ethan unexpectedly asked Maya to stay one more day to attend a special event at the cafe. Just a small gathering, he said, but his mysterious smile made her suspicious. She agreed, not knowing Ethan had been quietly planning something far greater. As the sun set, Haven Coffee lit up with string lights in the yard. Regulars, neighbors, and a few children from town gathered bringing cakes and flowers. In a simple green sweater, Maya stood in the yard, curiously watching Ethan run around setting up tables. She was stunned when she saw her mother Grace walk in with a radiant smile. Mom, Maya exclaimed, rushing to hug her. What are you doing here? Someone invited me, Grace replied, glancing at Ethan, and I couldn't miss it. Before Maya could fully process, Ethan stepped up, holding a makeshift microphone from an old cafe speaker. Everyone, he said, voice slightly trembling, but full of resolve. Thank you all for coming. Today isn't just a gathering. It's the day I want to do the most essential thing in my life. He turned to Maya, his eyes glowing beneath the lights. Her heart pounded as he knelt and pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a simple silver ring engraved with delicate oak flowers. Maya Johnson, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You walked into my life when I was nothing, just a guy in an alley. But you gave me hope, trust, and a reason to live authentically. I can't promise you the world, but I promise to love you, protect you, and be honest with you every day. Will you marry me? Maya covered her mouth, tears silently falling. The crowd stood still waiting. She looked at Ethan, not the man who once hid behind a false name, but the one who had let go of everything to become the best version of himself. She thought of the painful days, the doubts, and the letter he wrote with an open heart. She looked at Grace, who nodded encouragingly. Finally, Maya smiled, her voice trembling. I will, Ethan. She extended her hand, and he slid the ring onto her finger. The crowd erupted in applause. Children cheered, and Grace wiped away tears. Ethan stood and pulled Maya into his arms, holding her as if afraid she might vanish. They kissed a sweet kiss beneath the lights and laughter, as if every sorrow had melted away. That night, Haven Coffee became a love-filled yet straightforward wedding celebration. Mr. Henry brought homemade cookies, and Grace cut a chocolate cake she knew Maya loved. A neighbor played guitar, and everyone danced under the string lights. In Ethan's arms, Maya finally felt she had found where she truly belonged. How long have you been planning this? She asked, as they sat on a bench in the yard, fingers entwined. Since you walked into the cafe 3 days ago, Ethan replied, smiling. But honestly, I knew I wanted to be with you the day you shared that piece of bread with me in the alley. Maya rested her head on his shoulder, her heart at ease. I used to be afraid to trust you, but now I know. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. Ethan kissed her forehead. Always, Maya. Late at night, after the guests had gone, Grace held both their hands. I'm proud of you, Maya, she said, then turned to Ethan. And you take good care of my daughter. All right, I promise. Ms. Grace, Ethan replied, his gaze sincere. Maya and Ethan stood outside Haven Coffee as Grace left, watching the twinkling lights. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but with love and trust, they were ready to face anything. Their story, born in a cold alley, had now become a journey of the heart. Summer in Willow Creek brought warm breezes that rustled through lush green oak trees and gently made the wooden sign outside Haven Coffee sway. Maya Johnson, now Maya Carter, stood behind the counter, expertly crafting a latte with growing finesse. The silver ring engraved with oak blossoms on her finger sparkled under the sunlight, pouring through the window, a quiet reminder of Ethan Carter's vow of love. The small coffee shop with its rustic wooden walls and the soft aroma of toasted bread had become the heart of the community, where people gathered to laugh, share, and find joy. After their simple wedding at the cafe, Maya and Ethan were building a new life together, modest but significant. That morning, the cafe was busier than usual. Mr. Henry, the familiar regular with his silver beard, sat in the corner, sipping black coffee and reading the paper. A group of children from the skills class Ethan sponsored burst in, begging Maya to tell them a story. Smiling, she picked a children's book from the shelf and sat in the circle's center. Once upon a time, she began, her voice warm, a girl met a boy in a cold, lonely alley. From behind the counter, Ethan glanced her way, smiling as if the story belonged to just the two of them. Life had changed for Maya and Ethan since the day they pledged themselves to each other. Maya still ran Soul Pages in Chicago, remotely with a friend managing the store, but she now spent most of her time at Haven Coffee. She organized reading sessions at the cafe, bringing books from her store to share with Willow Creek's children. Once CEO of Pinnacle Technologies, Ethan was content being a barista and community mentor. He taught basic skills from repair work to coding, helping local youth find jobs. They weren't wealthy, but happy, surrounded by love and purpose. Grace, Maya's mother, visited often. One afternoon, she sat on the garden patio, sipping chamomile tea, while watching Maya and Ethan work. "I never thought you'd leave Chicago," she said, as Maya brought out a plate of cookies. "But I see how happy you are here, and that's all I've ever wanted." Maya embraced her warmly. "You taught me that home isn't a place, it's the people you love." She glanced over at Ethan, who was laughing with a regular, and felt her heart swell with contentment. But amidst the peace, a quiet threat emerged. One afternoon, as Maya checked emails on the cafe's laptop, an anonymous message popped up. "Ethan Carter may outrun the past, but not forever. Check the Dubai contract, 2015. Attached was a PDF, an old contract signed under the name Daniel Brooks, linked to an international Pinnacle deal. Maya froze. She remembered the confrontation about Daniel Brooks, the alias Ethan had once used. He had sworn it was over, but this document hinted otherwise. She called Ethan into the small office at the back of the cafe. "What is this?" she asked, handing him the laptop, her voice tense. "I thought everything about Daniel Brooks was done." Ethan read the file, his face paling. "Maya, this is fake," he said urgently. "The Dubai contract was real, but I closed it when I left Pinnacle. Maybe one of Victor's old associates is trying to smear me. I'll contact Sarah to verify." Maya crossed her arms, her eyes filled with doubt. "Victor again. Ethan? I don't want to live with secrets anymore. We promised honesty." Ethan took her hand, his eyes sincere. "I know, and I promise I'll find out who's behind this. But Maya, I need you to trust me. We've been through too much, and I can't lose you." She looked at him, sensing his truth, but the old fear lingered. "I trust you," she finally said softly. "But we face this together." Ethan nodded, pulling her into an embrace. Together, always. They contacted Sarah, who confirmed the document was forged, created by one of Victor's former partners to stir trouble. Sarah promised to alert the authorities to prevent further threats. Maya and Ethan resolved not to let ghosts of the past sabotage their present happiness. They renamed the cafe to Heart and Haven Coffee, a declaration that their love was a safe harbor against any storm. One evening, after their shop had closed, Maya and Ethan sat in the garden patio, watching the stars sparkle above Willow Creek. "Are you ever afraid," she asked, resting her head on his shoulder, "that the past might come back?" "Yes," Ethan admitted, holding her hand. "But with you beside me, I'm not afraid of anything. We survived the alley, Victor, and every shadow of doubt. We'll face whatever comes." Maya smiled and kissed his cheek. "Heart and Haven," she whispered. "It's not just a cafe, it's us." That night they stood before the new wooden sign, Heart and Haven, carefully engraved. They knew the past might bring more tests, but believed their love and trust were strong enough to endure. Their story, begun in a cold alley in Chicago, was now a journey of the heart, not only for themselves, but for everyone who found joy within the walls of Heart and Haven Coffee.